Cindy Hodnett with Furniture Today, and for this second chapter of our retailer playbook, I'll let our guests go around and tell you a little bit about themselves. And Linda, we'll start with you, then Leah, then Alex.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Linda Holt, and my business is Linda Holt Creative. And my background is I was a professional photographer in Boston for about 25 years. And then I went back to school during the first big recession in 2008 to pursue my second lifelong love, which was interior design. Opened up Linda Holt Creative in 2011. And at the same time, I developed some really severe neck and shoulder issues based on 25 years of lugging really heavy cameras, lenses, lights, equipment. And I actually was told I was going to face spinal surgery and neck fusion if I didn't put down the big camera. So it all worked out really well, but I was forced to figure out how to use my smartphone to do all of my photography. And it took a while, but I finally figured it out. And then I started helping my designer friends and other people in the industry. And now, fast forward to today, my specialty is teaching people in the home industry, designers, the trade, stagers, how to use their camera to get the best photos possible.
Great. Thanks, Linda. Leah?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Cindy. I'm excited to be here with Linda and Alex. I have been in the home furnishings industry my entire career. I started as a manufacturer sales rep for Berkline and Benchcraft at the time, and then moved into website sales. So sort of looked around at the retailers that I was working with. I knew that they needed a better way to capture consumer interest. This was probably back in 2008. And I've been working in kind of the technology section of the home furnishings industry since then. I've been at my current company, Outward, for almost 7 years now. We are a 10-year-old company. We started off doing traditional 3D services. So photography replacement, 360s, room planners, all of that sort of engagement software. And noticed that that was still the technology, even though we automated and iterated a lot, was still pretty expensive and pretty time consuming. And so we started developing a tool that could be more self-service to help retailers, manufacturers in the wholesale space do some photography replacement, work on their silo photography as a way to sort of manage their own brand instead of being stuck with manufacturer photos as they are. So excited to be here today and appreciate you guys having me.
Thanks. Alex?
Sure. My name is Alex Manning. I am the head of video production at Element Studio in High Point, North Carolina. I watched too many movies as a kid, had that realization that you can actually make movies and do this as a living. Went out to went to film school at UNCW, go Seahawks, UNCW out east, and then went to LA for a little bit, and came back. It's been 11 years at Element Studio in High Point, North Carolina. We've got a 22,000 square foot facility about 5 miles from downtown, and we're a video and photography studio that does quite a bit. So we've got 3 large production stages and a big cyclorama green screen and stuff. And I think we have the only true sound stage in the Triad. So yeah, I've been working here for 11 years, and furniture is about 35% of our business. So it's kind of the backbone. Certainly being that close to downtown and High Point, furniture is huge.
Yes, most definitely. Okay, very good. Well, let's go ahead and dive in. So for each one of our categories, we're going to talk about this, but from, the furniture perspective, in general, consumers have many, many touch points along the path to purchase, from, the manufacturer websites to showroom photography, at market photography, videography. So that said, each one of you will touch a different customer base, client base. So if you will, walk us through what that initial consultation and strategy process looks like. Maybe we'll start with Leah for this one.
Yeah, so we work, as I mentioned, in kind of a self-service mode. We set up our current product set up a studio box sort of in a distribution center, warehouse, receiving center. And we work with clients to say, okay, where does furniture flow? How do things come in? Where do your new introductions roll through? Where can we capture those first things so that you have an image of that item immediately that you can use for social, send to Furniture Today, put onto your website, get something out to either your retail customers or as a retailer out to your consumers. And so that's mainly kind of how we choose where to put it. And then what we kind of talk them through and talk with them about is how they really want to sort of showcase their products, right? What different angle shots do they need? What different, are they doing social? Are they doing web? Are they doing print? And what different shots might they need for that? And how can we set all of that up so that they have a really reliable and consistent template that they can use to get sort of consistent results that they can use at any of their output channels that they may have. So it's a little bit of how we work with our customers.
Great. How about you, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, we always say like video and photography can help or hurt your business. If you're a 10 out of 10 brand and you're making awesome stuff and you have subpar 5 out of 10 photography and video, like it's not good. Just don't post anything, right? Don't put anything out there if it's going to not match the level of your product or your service. So to us, relationships are the key, like 100%. It's knowing who the client is. It's knowing what they've tried before. It's knowing what has succeeded, what has failed. It's really honestly getting to know them. We love to have relationships with our clients. We have to get comfortable enough to share the good and bad. It's like, hey, we could do better on this, or what if we tried this? And I think often the best ideas and the best end product come from that. So like number one would be just getting to know them and getting to know their needs. And then two, like, everybody kind of has a core of who they are as a brand, right? And then they have how comfortable they are pushing the limits and doing some fun stuff in marketing. And so our job, very similar to an agency or along with an agency, is to push that limit, to differentiate them. And but first of all, they have to just feel comfortable, and we have to know about what they're doing and what they've done in the past, and think about things that they can do in the future. So
I love that you said, you say if you're not putting something out there that matches the rest of the brand, think about that. Don't do it,
You're better not to have, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually a really good segue into Linda's expertise, because I think Linda has helpful hints that kind of arm almost for this on the ground, more gritty, more generic type of photography. So Linda, talk a little bit about the clients you work with as well.
So my clients are, I really I don't work with the big furniture stores per se, but I really want to empower everybody that's involved with that vendor, whether it's the reps or the salespeople or whatever, to use their smartphone to get better images. And like Alex said, many of them, I'd say the vast majority, have no idea what they're doing. They just take their phone, point and shoot. If they get a good shot, it's a miracle. Usually it's not. But I try to train them to think about the lighting, think about their angle. The thing about the smartphone, which is so different from digital cameras, it has the normal default lens is a pretty wide angle lens. So if you're not holding your phone the right way, you're going to get like diverging or converging lines, and you don't want to be posting things on social media that make the furniture look like it's bending inward or it's crooked. So just the one tip I can give just off the top of my head is to hold the phone so it's level. You're not tipping it down at the furniture, which is what most people do. They hold their phone up high by their chest and they tip it down to photograph something, and the chest is going to literally, go like this, the line. So holding the phone perfectly level on the same plane as the furniture or the product or whatever they're shooting. And lighting is really can be complicated, depend where they're shooting. If it's at High Point, we all know those vendor booths at High Point have horrific lighting. There's spotlights on the furniture. And so that's a whole nother issue. But there are ways you can, work around that. But I think everybody should, feel that they can get pretty decent photos with their phone. It's just learning how to use it and knowing a few key things, and it's possible.
And it brings up a good point, because obviously I feel like photography and videography are really tiered, right? So you have companies who are going to make the investment in a lot of the finished products. And then, we had one of our panelists on last month's social session saying that one of the sort of underutilized opportunities would be with the sales associates in terms of like promoting things on social media and just helping build brand awareness and even showroom traffic during market. So, thinking about that from each of your unique perspectives, what would you say are 2 or 3 of the biggest obstacles or missteps, that retailers or manufacturers make when they're trying to create effective visual content for their customers? And I'll let you guys jump in as you would choose.
Well,
I think, yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, a
think, a lot, there's the average consumer sometimes can't see the difference between, one brand and another, because, there's practical applications that furniture have, and there's a lot of copying that goes on, right? Oh, I like that. If I just, and I think, oftentimes people that are chasing the coattails of maybe what was a hit, and they try to copy their competition from a marketing perspective, sometimes with half the budget. And I think that, instead of trying to make a longer lasting light bulb, try something different completely, right? Do something different. Don't copy the competition, especially if they're already way ahead in the race, So I think that's one obstacle that I would say that, retailers and manufacturers can avoid. Just think outside the box. I know that sounds cliche, but it's true.
And I was going to say from a strict photography, still photography view, think about, really what you want to show, what your focus is, and be really careful about your background so that you don't have a lot of, busy things going on in the background. You can put your camera in portrait mode really and shoot what you want to shoot. But think about, just the whatever the product is as a whole. Think about, what do I want the viewer to take away when they look at this photo? Because sometimes it's a jumbled mess. People get too much in the photo. It's a busy background and you're not really sure what you're looking at. So I'd say really just give it a little bit of thought before you pull your camera out and do a point and shoot at something.
Yeah, I think Linda has the exact idea. I think one of the things that, at least what I consider to be kind of the wholesale side of the furniture industry, the independent retailers and manufacturers do best and know how to do best, is they know how to connect with a consumer when they walk into the store, and they know how to walk a consumer through the features and benefits of whatever furniture piece it is that they're presenting. And all of a sudden, when we switch to digital, when we switch to photography, when we switch to telling that story somewhere else other than our sales floor, it's like we don't know, we all of a sudden, get amnesia and don't know where we are. But the truth is, the retailer, furniture manufacturer, know this way better than like an Amazon or a Walmart or a Wayfair, right? You know how to connect with the customer. You know what stories work with each of those items, and translate that, right? Translate that into photography and into videos. And the way that you translate is like, capture the details that are important, right? If it's a reclining piece, open it up. If it's a power piece, show the buttons. If it's got like a beautiful wood veneer, make sure you capture that as one of the shots. So, and stepping back, I think, and thinking about it as a consumer, what do I need to know about that piece that I would know if I was standing in front of it, but I'm not going to know? Like, one image isn't going to do it, right? You need some variety, you need different angles, you need some of those detail shots so that the consumer can really feel like they got to know that piece and what really makes that piece special. And, to Alex's point, that's how you really combat the fact that, like, hey, this one and this one look exactly the same, and there's $1,000 difference in between. Well, you can explain that, and you
Yes.
know how to tell that story as a
Yes.
retailer, as a manufacturer. Do it,
I
right?
think it's worth mentioning too, is that, for video, with photography aside, video has an audio component to it too. So, you have this sound of furniture. You go, what is that? Have you ever heard a perfect, like a really, really nice shelf, or, something being slid out? Like, it has a nice sound, all these ASMR folks are like, oh yeah. I mean, there's, leather, sitting on leather and just here. I mean, there's some cool stuff from a sound perspective, not to mention the music and what the music tells, what story the music tells. I mean, is it have this kind of a fashion forward track? It's a little upbeat. Well, let's make sure that the piece and your customer is that fashion forward customer, right? So you have that whole side too. I think everybody always thinks photography, video, visual, and for video, there's that audio component too that can't be ignored, and is more subconscious certainly, but it's a huge part of it.
And sometimes scale too for still photography, I would add that, because, when you're just seeing something out of context, you don't know, is it 3 feet tall? Is it 5 feet tall? So sometimes just having some accessories on it that people, like some books will give even a sense of scale, or, some flowers. We all know, daisies are a certain size, or even a person standing next to it with their hand on, something that, you might like on near a knob that will highlight the knob. So think about scale, because that's important to people as well.
Linda, I love what you said earlier. It's like the most uncomfortable position is always probably the best shot. Like if you're in an uncomfortable position and your back hurts, you're like, okay, that's it,
If you're on your hands and knees, you're probably doing good.
You're rocking it, exactly.
That's actually great, because it does segue into like the next topic of discussion. And so it's kind of the flip side, what are 3 easy first steps that people can take to have better photography or videography? And I think, particular to our audience, maybe some of the things to take into consideration with this would be like, lighting or crowded conditions, that sort of thing. So what would each of you, if we've got audience members jotting down their top 3 takeaways, what would each of you offer for that?
I think I'd say, create stories and associations. Like, it may not be exactly your customer, the story you're wrapping around this piece of furniture or this collection, but activities around it. We live around furniture. It's one thing, it's there, it's usually still, it's usually not moving, and we live around it. So show those activities around it. Do a time lapse around this, this piece of furniture, or all the things and ways we interact with it right now. You literally could, look around. I'm sitting here, I've got my legs crossed. Okay, that's this. Okay, how do I sit on this piece of furniture? So associations, the environments that they're placed in. Maybe it's not a home. Maybe it's a home piece, but like, change it up, switch it up. Go. The contrast of a location sometimes shows off the most beautiful pieces of furniture. If you take this beautiful curvy piece of furniture, high-end piece, and put it in a warehouse, you realize by contrast, oh my God, this thing's beautiful, right? This thing is gorgeous. So and of course, if there's any moving part or benefit that you want to call out, show that moving part. I always say, again, most furniture doesn't move. Move the camera if you're able to. What does that piece look like from above? Well, that's going to get somebody's attention, right? Move the lighting, cause some shadow if it does something really, really cool, right? And then location. I guess again, another location. There is nothing like the right piece of furniture with in the right location with the right propping. I just love that. When it feels right and you can put the two together, you're like, people are like, I don't know why that looks different. I don't know why that piece is just so nice. And it's probably the piece, of course, but a lot of it is the location. You cannot not, we're all about location. So, and building the location sometimes that is ideal. So
yeah, I could not agree more. And I'm going to come at this a bit from like a more of a solo photography standpoint. And I think a lot of it is keep it simple. And I'm going to reiterate what Linda said. I mean, my number one is like scale, right? One of the things that consumers are really trying to understand is they probably have had a bad experience where they accidentally, purchased a chair for a leprechaun, not meaning to, thinking it was a normal size chair. And so they might be a little gun shy. So showing scale, helping them to understand what scale is of that piece, I think showing different angles, right? They need to know what this looks like from different areas. We did some consumer research and their confidence grows so much. When you have one image, they feel like they don't know what that piece is, what it's made of. They just don't trust it. And once you get multiple angles, the consumer confidence goes up, up, up. And whether that means that they're going to, buy it online, or whether that means they're going to visit your store and see it in person, you still need that confidence to go up. So scale, make sure you show scale, angles, and then also put it in context, right? I think, Alex mentioned this with the contrast piece, but like, once again, your customer, right? If you are in Colorado, showing them the sofa on a brick wall like you're an exposed loft in Brooklyn is not relatable, right? They don't understand what that would look like. In a similar feel, if you're, showing them sort of a paneled out mansion wall, that's also not going to be relatable for a $200 sofa or something like that, right? So make sure that you're sort of casting a vision and making that piece relatable to your specific customer when it comes to setting those backgrounds. And, that's certainly for a retailer. I think for a manufacturer, make sure that you do not complicate those backgrounds so that you're not putting your retailers in a tough spot when you photograph something for Florida and they're trying to sell it, in Vermont, right?
And
Linda,
yeah, I would definitely agree with Leah, especially about getting different angles. I think one mistake, again, that people make with a smartphone is because they're not thinking of it as a quote real camera. They point and shoot, they'll get one photo. So I encourage people shoot multiple images, from every angle, detail, really exhaust that every possible option to photograph that furniture. Also, with a smartphone, it is imperative that you learn how to set the exposure manually, because especially if you're shooting inside, it's probably going to look dark. So you need to there's two ways to do it on the smartphone. You can either tap on the phone screen exactly where you want the in-camera light meter to set the exposure, or you can hold your finger on the camera screen until either a yellow circle appears if you have an Android, or a yellow box appears if you have an iPhone, and then slide your finger up the screen to lighten it, down the screen to darken it, or left to right on the Android. So you really have to take control of the exposure yourself. And then the third thing I would say is, again, with a smartphone, it's so easy to get bending lines of your products or your furniture. So besides holding the camera level, there's an aid inside the camera in settings called the grid. And if you just go into settings, scroll down to camera, and then click on grid, you'll have a series of horizontal and vertical lines on your phone screen. Then anything on your piece of furniture or in the scene that you know to be true horizontal or vertical, you can just line up the grid lines with that. That will really go a long way to giving you nice straight lines and good perspective.
that's fantastic. And, I like it because, again, we're transitioning right into the next topic. And Lee, I know you were at our innovation event, and so you're familiar with a lot of some of the technologies we were talking about there. But I think a lot of the conversation with some of this is around the implementation of 2D, 3D product photography, new technologies, new processes. So from each of your perspectives, can you tell us sort of maybe what the hot new thing is that people should know about or should at least have on their radar? Leah, we'll start with.
Yeah, so I have a bit of a soapbox about this because I think the hot thing is very important, but if you don't have the first thing, the hot thing doesn't matter, right? So first things first, but I think a lot of the hot things that are happening, I mean, the talk of the innovation event was the metaverse, right? How do you get 3D assets? How do you figure out how to deploy these? How do you think about what the consumer is going to be doing? And so what I think, it's a lot of sort of covering your bases, but I think if you start now in developing great photography, that will eventually set you up for when it's time to deploy that for your specific business, right? So for home furnishings retail, it's something to start thinking about. It's something to make sure that you have imagery, video of all of your products now so that you can experience and create these experiences once it's time to come. So that's kind of how I would approach it, is to start thinking about making sure that you have imagery of each of your items that will give you the ability to take advantage of upcoming technologies. And I think, you know, from our standpoint at Outward, we're using a ton of tech to make this really easy, right? We're using a ton of tech to automate our process. We're using a lot of artificial intelligence to make sure that we're able to do all of the automated post-processing. We're using that to apply appropriate lighting and shadows to a product. We're using that to be able to shift that lighting and shadows 6 months down the road when you want to go from brightly lit to something moody. We're using machine learning. So every time the software sees something new, sees some crazy fringe or sees an item that looks, I mean, Phillips Collection does this the best. They have one of a kind stuff that look like crazy driftwood. It automatically adjusts. It learns what that item needs. It automatically cuts that out. And we're certainly using a ton of 3D technology to actually create shots where we're putting an item on a background. And I think everybody on here has probably seen what I call bad CGI, or like the end table sent from God, where you put it on a dark background and it's like a brightly lit item and it looks wrong, right? You know that it looks wrong. We're using a ton of tech. I mean, this took us 3 or 4 years in addition to our previous experience, but to actually take a background and take an item and meld those two things together so that the lighting and the shadows match, so that it looks like real photography, even though you're not capturing those two items together. And so there's a lot of tech that goes into making it easy, as it normally happens. But that's the exciting thing of, I think, where we are today, is like, if you're able to continue to put yourself out there, continue to get the trust of the consumer, continue to capture your items through photos and video, you're going to be set up for whatever needs to come in the future.
I'm going to get you to help me with my next virtual background. Okay.
Well, I think that giant camera is what Linda was talking about, that nearly caused her spinal
Use Zoom
surgery.
backgrounds with your
Right. Alex, how about you? What about some of the technology you guys are using?
Yeah, so we found that oftentimes it's all about like the practical application and cost, right? Quality 3D assets of furniture on a fully 3D background and full realism for video is cost prohibitive a lot of the time for clients. It depends on what they're doing, certainly, but for every second of video, that's 24 frames, right? Or 30 even. So, it can get a little costly and a little time consuming to do that. But we found, we've used technology. We love the real thing, certainly, but 3D is fantastic too. And we've done some crazy cool stuff with 3D. Oftentimes, like the composite between them, or photogrammetry, having those assets, honestly, that Leah has 360s of a piece, and doing that, taking that in, making a 3D model of it, shooting it against a real back. Like there's not just like only CGI, only photography, and only 3D models. Like sometimes the combination of those will create the coolest final products. But I would say, if you have 1,000 SKUs, shooting those 1,000 SKUs, on a single place it doesn't make sense to do, in studio, but those more lifestyle aspects of it, somebody on it, somebody touching it, anything that grounds itself a little bit more in that lifestyle element, certainly, photography and video, in a stage, or some of the cool things we do in showrooms, or on location, of course, are great. We use 3D in a lot of different ways. We LiDAR scanning is a part of what we do. We'll LiDAR scan. CAD models are few and far between for furniture, right? Somebody's creating this thing and they're shipping over the plans. You see it on the 2D, whatever, and sometimes actually getting the one piece that exists of some of these things, right, before they're actually manufactured. I have the prototype. Oh my God! If the manufacturer, if our client will even let us have it, right? Bodyguards shipping it to our studio, right? This is it. It's the only one we have at market. But we'll go to showrooms and we'll take pictures, or we'll do LiDAR scans, or we'll do photogrammetry and different things to get it in a 3D model. But there's there's LiDAR scanning. There's on a pre-visualization of a set, we're using Oculus Quest 2s and virtual reality and SketchUp to walk a set, sometimes with a client, to go, okay, this is what I want. This is what I want. You talk about scale. How big a room do we, how big? Sometimes a blueprint isn't enough. How big a room do we want? And can I get the camera all the way down to here? Can I get it up? Can I get it up here based on the space and all those different things? But depending on it really depends on what the final product is and the cost. There's another cool thing that we've invested a little bit in for Nick, one of our graphic specialists, 3D graphic specialists. It's called Looking Glass. And it's really cool. This is talking about the future. It's a display, like a display that is basically it's a holographic display where you can see it's made up of multiple different screens. Those oh gosh, what do you call it? Lenticulars sometimes you had as a kid, where you look left and right and it kind of moves. It's basically a monitor version of that, where we can see these 3D models in true 3D form. It looks like it's literally popping out of the screen. So whether it's pre-visualization, whether it's the compositing of CGI or photographed assets, or whatever, ultimately I feel like it depends on what the client's final output is. Is it if it's a landing page, that's the shot, oh my goodness, that needs to be take your breath away. $50 says that it's a composite of all three of those things. Like Leah said, you got to have the assets. So you have to have the assets. You can't do nothing. You can't do something with nothing, right? And so I think it's important to there's not one thing that's probably going to solve every application that a retailer or a manufacturer is going to want to use with their product.
For sure. And I think, Linda, your recommendations for this might be the one part that sends everybody out shopping tonight. So what type of thing would you recommend?
Well, I don't have any, tech gadgets or anything, but I definitely would agree with what Alex and Leah said. It's definitely the metaverse is where photography is going. I've gone to 2 virtual show houses. They're still in their infancy stage now, but I can see within the next couple of years, they are going to be amazing. You just log in and you can walk through each room, and you can, you can't touch the stuff. That's the thing for me. I like to touch it, but you can see it. You can look at the furniture from different angles. You can see the back of the sofa. And that's pretty exciting. But another thing that I think isn't really on everybody's radar yet, but I also think it's coming, is NFTs for furniture. This past spring, Nathan Anthony had the first NFTs for sale at High Point, and that just fascinated me. So for new introductions or special pieces, so people can buy these NFTs, and then when they set up their virtual home in the metaverse, they can have that furniture can go into their online metaverse house. And so I think there's a lot coming down the line, but I still think there's always going to be a place for still photography. I just don't see that going away. So I think in the phones, every single model gets smarter and better and better and better. Now, the last digital camera I bought was probably in 2008. And when I think about my phone I have now is so much better than the last digital camera that I owned. It is amazing. And they almost, I think, can eventually almost put professional photographers out of business, because they really do such a great job. And then the editing apps that right on your camera, if something is that you don't want in the photo, they have apps that can instantly remove what you don't want, remove the background. And these are things that take seconds to do, all right on your phone.
Yeah, it's a good point. Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, can I follow up? I think what Linda mentioned something, I just want to emphasize it. She mentioned about how, still photography isn't going away. And all of these experiences that we've talked about are great. At least we know from data from our parent company. We're owned by Williams-Sonoma, coming up on our 5th year now. And so from West Elm, from Pottery Barn, we know that these experiences do a great job of driving conversion. but they drive conversion at the very bottom of that funnel. So the ability to have still imagery helps drive consumers to you at the top of the funnel, right? You can't start with a 360. You can't start with a metaverse.
Yeah.
You can't start with Oculus lenses. To Alex's point, you need to start with the still photography and some basic video of it, right? That helps the person know that this is the item that they're interested in. And then they will travel down further with you into these experiences and convert. But without that top level, it's hard for them to trust whatever that kind of cool thingy experiment is. They're like, oh, that's cool, but I still don't know if this would fit in my house. I still don't understand maybe what the scale of this is. I still don't understand, what the side or what the functionality looks like. So still photography, that sort of basic video is really important for the top of the funnel. These cool things are great for that bottom conversion of it, but not if you don't have the top.
No, that's beautifully said. I mean, there's things that photography can do. Video takes time, right? It's time related. Like, give me time. Am I going to focus? Am I going to focus? Flip, I'm gone, right? Then you get it. Photography can tell a story instantly, right? Door-to-door salesman. Hi, you look at their appearance. Oh, okay. I'm going to keep listening. You get them to a video, even better. You get them to a augmented reality app where they actually have the scale and they're looking at the size of the piece in their own home. Okay, furniture is not in many cases, most cases, it's not a small purchase. It's not going to be like an instant sort of add to cart buy, right? It is, you're thinking about how you're going to play with the wall colors are, all those sort of things, right? So I think that, like you said, yeah, the funnel is important, and you could have great photography and misstep. You got to get them to push that buy now button, or it's not worth it. You go, oh, that's cool, but you got to sell them. You got to get them interested and tell them in many cases, like the beginning of the conversation, tell them why this is different, why this, show the creation and the manufacturing process. Sometimes that, walking through some of these factories, it just blows your mind. You go, oh my God, now I know why it's so expensive. Like, oh my, it's more beautiful inside than it is outside, in many cases. So.
And also with still photography, you can really sort of show people by styling it. You can create a vision that they can take their time and look at the photo where, sometimes things go so fast. And I remember when I did do this virtual show house, it was a little bit overwhelming, and I really wanted to just really sit and look at it, but it's hard to do that when you're in a 3D world, where with a photograph, you can look at it, you can imagine yourself sitting, having coffee in that chair, and you could just create a whole scene that people can take in, and you can create a mood that they can take the time to sort of incorporate that mood, and that you will hook them to buy, the product if you set it up correctly.
It almost seems like it's a good, better, best for photography and videography. And so I originally was going to kind of focus with Alex on this, but I'd really like to get all of your input. A lot of companies start out with social, we know that might be the first touch point. And then they're going into the funnel. So would you align this kind of good, better, best idea with starting at social and then going into building more brand awareness or engagement? Talk a little bit about more about the funnel, I guess, and which particular maybe techniques or assets you would follow along the way with that.
I'll take this one. That's a huge question, right? Because low production value, quick, mind share, social media, you think, streaming and television, then you think, YouTube sponsored ads, and then you think, oh, what can I get done for free with a small sponsor, whatever, on Instagram stories, right? So that's hard, right? Because you don't want to offend, you have this great brand that puts this really quick shot up, and it's like, well, I'm still looking at it. Like, are you still going to respect the, the time that I have looking at this? Why would you post something that's so low production value, et cetera, et cetera? It's hard, and it's also hard to find, or to get the right format for the right social media channel too. I mean, I always say that, we're watching our videos vertically now. I always say that, God wanted us to watch vertical video. We would have put our eyes like this, as opposed to this, right? And, people shoot horizontally and then they try to fit it again vertically. But I, my personal opinion on it is that social video, in many cases, is all about mind share, right? Posting a lot, getting people to look at it, just reminding them that you exist, right? Reminding them that you exist and that you're relevant, you're relevant, you're relevant. I think that's incredible. And it's okay to have lower production values, you know, in that world, right? You know, when you watch something on Netflix, or if you have, you know, paid advertising in YouTube, you're probably going to be paying more for that. You probably need to put a little bit more of your best foot forward. But if, you know, social is about mind share, you know, at least to me, with, if you can get them in, like you said, on the funnel of the social, and they click on your brand, then you got something more substantial, right? You got something that you know, they can kind of soak in. You know, you got them at that midway point. And then I think the branded content that most social stuff leads to, and I know there's a, you know, that's very vague, but branded stuff is a reminder of who you are to the customer, of or to your potential customer. It's the reason, the why you should combine forces and start a relationship and buy this particular, you know, product or brand, or what it can do for you. I mean, you know, I'd say each channel certainly has its pros and cons. Stories in the last, you know, 5, 6 years has been fantastic. Right, this is what's going on now. Click, 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 click. Wonderful. But you know, it's also worth considering too, from a social media standpoint, is there's now like 3 ages of social media. There's an older platform, Facebook, right? And then there's a middle-aged platform, Instagram, and then there's a new one, TikTok, right? So I mean, it's, you know, you have these 3 different ages, and like, what demographics are in which one serves your brand best. I will say this, and this is pretty controversial though, you know, a longer videos, you notice everybody's, for the longest time, video specifically, shorter videos are better. Shorter. Not necessarily true. We've found it's if you can hook them in that first 15 seconds, like, yes, it almost needs to stand alone from a video perspective for that first 15 seconds or 5 seconds or even 1 second, right? But TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and a lot of these social media channels, they are letting the time, length of time is increasing. You know, I think one of them's up to 10 minutes now. And I have sat there, focused on a video that got me for 10 minutes on my phone, right? So I wouldn't be afraid to you know, go longer, as long as you got that instant hook. And the one thing that still works, and statistics say too, is any call to actions. Stop, listen, act now, warning. Like, it's still deep in our brains, and we go, oh, you know, you're going to get somebody that way. So it's the easy way out, but it does work. No question about it. So.
Sorry, Leah, did you have anything you would like to add to that one?
No, I mean, I think that I think Alex said it best, and he certainly knows it best. I think maybe what I would say is, like, keep, you know, once you have all of that great content in those different channels, you have to drive them somewhere. And I think one of the other things that we're seeing is that's typically a website. And it's typically directly to a product page. Like, most of the time, the product page is your new homepage, right? We used to really worry about, like, making the homepage this inviting front door, this really branded experience. And most people now, through retargeting ads, through social videos where they're looking at a certain maybe recliner or dining table or something or other that you posted, are going directly into a product page. And if you're driving them into a product page, you go from this great video where you're explaining all of these benefits, and then you're driving them to a product page that has one image. That is an inconsistent experience, right? So make sure that you are answering all of their questions through your photography. Make sure that you're driving them to a place that doesn't leave them, it's sort of an emotional dead end. You need a lot of angles, right? You need to tell a story. You need to answer any questions they might have about it, right? Those questions could be scale. Those questions might be color. Where would I put this? How am I going to use it? So I would make sure that you have some consistent quality. I would look at your product pages with some fresh eyes, as like, what would people think of me if they landed on this random page? Or as I create this great sort of social experiment, as I have one of my sales team members do a video of this product, what does the product page look like on the website? And make sure that you can kind of drive that consumer through their whole journey.
Great. Linda, I'm going to start with you on this last one. I know we've got a hard stop coming up here in a few minutes, so we're going to kind of jump ahead a little bit. But you know, what we're hearing really from all of you is that, you know, you have to also be able to tell the story, behind the product, right? And I think, you know, in this age, sometimes with instant gratification, we do think point, click, done. But if you will, from each of your perspectives, talk a little bit about how you guide your clients and your customers to their storytelling process.
Well, I think you have to start looking at the big picture. What is your brand about? Who are you selling to? You know, are you selling to millennials? Are you selling to baby boomers? Are you selling to second homes, first homes, vacation homes? So you really need to, even before you get to the photography part or the video part, have a clear picture of who your market is. And then everything you do, from photography to video to text, all needs to speak to that one client or your avatar. And I think that's really important. And I think what Leah was just saying about consistency, I know a lot of people fall short on that. So even if you go to their social media and say their Instagram page, they don't have a clear brand image. You know, some of the big obviously stores, you know, the Pottery Barn, the West Elms, we know they have a clear brand image, but a lot of the smaller vendors, they're kind of all over the place, and they don't seem to have a consistency of a brand. So I think that would be one thing I would say. Just be really cognizant of who you're selling to. Think about what you want the photography to be. Is it going to be light and airy? Is it going to be dark and moody? I mean, just basic thoughts before you start, you know, building your website or your Instagram or your TikTok or whatever you're doing.
How about you, Leah?
Yeah, so we don't make them decide. I am a horribly indecisive person. And so it's probably the Libra in me. I can like argue both sides, but generally our platform allows them to capture it. And then if they want to be bright and airy today, and 6 months later, they decide that they want to try dark and moody, they can do it. So what we, you know, try to set them up with originally, I mean, to Linda's point, is like, who are you right now? What type of consistent sort of look and feel can we create now? And then if you want to do something on social that is taking this piece and making it really like RH-like and making it really moody, you can do that. You can play around with it. We'll give you the tools to do it. But originally it's setting them up. Who is your customer? What are we trying to convey to them? What angles are most important? What kind of operations or time do you have? So get them set up right. But then I think probably everybody on the call knows this. Alex and Linda are no doubt feeling this too. There are so many channels, right? There's social, there's print, there's still like POP, there's still TV out there, there's still newspaper out there, there's still glossy catalogs, there's still a website. There are so many different channels that their photography needs to get out to. And so allowing different file types, different sizes, making that easy so that you can deploy this in different ways is something that at least our customers have found to be really helpful. But that's really where, let's set up something that's consistent. Let's figure out who you are now. Let's set that up so it's automated, it's repeatable, it's consistent. And then when you want to play around, we'll give you the ability to create it in a completely different lighting, shadow, sphere, if that's something that you want to do.
Great. Alex?
Avoid politics. I think no, it's a great question. To Linda's point, it's like, it's a lot of times, you know, smaller companies that haven't defined themselves, don't have the money for an agency, and you know, they kind of need to be told who they are. Here's the mirror. Here's what we think of you. We just met you, or we've heard of you, or hey, your product reminds me of whatever. I think it's completely open line of communication with the client from our perspective. And I think, you know, in combination with that, it's try something, and if it doesn't work, reinvent yourself. Like, the chances are the product's going to be the same. Chances are the person who's in charge of marketing it, or whoever's in charge of the creation of this product or design of this project, whatever, is going to have something to say. But if the approach or the style that you do it in doesn't work, you don't have to continue doing it. And how often have you gone to somebody's social media and gone back and gone, what were they doing 3 years ago? Never, 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 and no, the wall on Facebook doesn't even exist. It's just news feeds now, right? So reinvent yourself, or your approach. Even if you have your brand, your brand staples, and this is who we are, what we do, and how we do it, the approach can change, and the style in which you do something can change completely. We are making, there's companies with cool product that aren't funny, but when you shoot a shotgun approach, and you're going to throw it on social media or sponsored ads, we're doing a comedy video for one of them. And you know what? People who don't care about this particular product may go, wait a second, that was pretty funny. What is this? You know what I mean? So I think it's sometimes it's not your typical overview video or your, three-quarter angle shot. It's something different, and don't feel afraid to go, okay, well, that didn't work. We know that doesn't work with our brand, or change it up, change it up. And if it sticks, don't change it until it doesn't work.
Keep it.
Keep it for a little while. Yeah.
Keep it. Yeah. Stay with it. So we'll go around, and I'll get your one little soundbite. What's the number one thing a company should do to up their photography or videography game in 2023?
Hire Element Studio.
Steve's gonna be so happy with you.
I know. Steve, can I have a raise? Yeah.
Mine.
I would go for it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say start. Just don't get paralyzed. Just start. Right. I mean, to Alex's point, play around with things, try out different things. I've learned so much just from the two of them on this. So just start, right? Just don't be too scared to get rolling on something and to deploy something. There aren't a lot of decisions that you can't reverse out of if you need to. So I would just say start, and you'll see that as it unfolds in front of you, it's a lot less daunting than you might think. And the results on the other side, if you're thinking like a consumer, the results on the other side are really helpful.
Okay. Linda, how about you?
I would say to change your mindset around your cell phone and stop thinking of it as a subpar camera. It is an amazing, powerful camera. And honestly, many times you would not be able to tell the difference if a cell phone took it or the most expensive digital camera and lens combination. So I would like to retire the hashtag crappy cell phone photo forever. That's my goal for 2023.
Excellent. And Alex, one more shot.
Sure. Yeah. Ultimately, I'd say, oh gosh, I'd say that, do something different. I'm always about doing, changing it up and switching it up. I think that actually, I'd say this. I'd say ask feedback. Like, people aren't naturally coming up to you going, I don't like the way you do things. Like, that's unnatural, right? Especially here in the South, right? We don't do that. We can say, bless your heart. And so, I would ask for people, what do you think of this? Oh, I really like that. I really like it. No. What do you really think of it? Ask friends, ask family, ask the consumer, ask people who aren't your. I think feedback is so important because what you'll find, you'll list it all. You take this person's feedback, this person's, and you will find that there are associations between that feedback, right? We're not just selling to a single person, and maybe except for that Colorado furniture in Brooklyn, that guy got sold when you put it on. But I'd say we're not you're not shooting for a single person in many cases. Find the piece of people that you believe are your demographic. You might find that they're actually not. And it's these people over here that love your product too. And maybe you need to throw marketing dollars over there. So I'd say ask for feedback. And then two, I'd say, and this often means less money in a video studio's pocket or in a photography studio's pocket, but be ready to market and pay money to market. Like we've created amazing stuff that never had the money for distribution behind it. Sponsored ads and are a big thing. If you want to get what you create sold or even out there for people to see, take part of those marketing dollars and make sure that it's not just to create something really cool and engaging, but it's to actually distribute what's cool and amazing, what you create to people. People have to see it. And then once they see it, you can loosen up a little bit.
Great advice. Well, guys, thank you so much for your time today. I thought we were going to end early. We're going to end actually right on time. It was a great conversation. Just to remind our viewers, this is the second chapter of our retailer playbook. You can find the first chapter on our website. We'll be adding to it each month. And we'll also be covering more about this topic in Furniture Today. So Alex, Leah, Linda, thank you again.
Thank you.
And thanks for the great advice.